Welcome to Dreamers to Leaders, Keeping It Real with Melody podcast. Melody is a born dreamer who started from being a flight attendant and worked her way up into now a tech fashion trendsetter, thought leader, and seasoned entrepreneur in multiple successful ventures. This podcast is for the awakened dreamer. Industry icons will share their humble beginnings up to the leaders they are today. Let's all learn and be inspired. Together, we can all prosper.
Hello and welcome to the Dreamers to Leaders podcast. It's a podcast for the dreamers and, more importantly, the doers. Today, we're going to dive in and explore the world of branding. Joining us here today is Minling. She is the founder of Brand Fame. She also launched a 54 million product for Cuisine and has won awards for that product. She also has a master's in business administration from Indiana University. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Minling. Hello, Minling.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on.
How are you? How's everything? Good?
I'm doing well. Yes, doing well. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you. It's been a while. Well, so if you could share with our audience more about you and your branding company.
Yeah. So basically, like you mentioned, I started my career in corporate branding. I worked at Nestle on the Cuisine brand and the Toll House brand. I launched a $54 million product that won Product of the Year for Cuisine. And things were going well in my corporate career, but I had a big epiphany when I went to Nepal. I went to this orphanage where I was volunteering and helping and supporting, and met these children that were basically sold into indentured servitude and later rescued. There's some kids that had parents that couldn't take care of them. And at the orphanage, when I met these kids, they were the happiest kids I've ever met in my entire life. And one of the things that struck me was that they had all these dreams of, one little boy wanted to be an astronaut, another girl wanted to be a teacher, another, little boy wanted to be a doctor. And they had so many dreams and aspirations. And the thought popped into my head, when did I stop dreaming? And there was this pivotal moment in my life where I was just like, oh my gosh, I've been living my life for everyone else, being the good Asian. I got a good education. I did the corporate thing, but I wasn't necessarily happy and following my dreams. So I ended up a year later deciding to part ways with Nestle and move on to my own journey in my path. I actually started an inspirational blog that I did for a little bit. And then I fell back into branding and consulting because so many people loved my inspirational blog. They were like, oh my gosh, Minling, you're really good at this. And I realized that, the reason why I stepped away from branding was more so because I was burnt out than not loving branding. I love branding. I love doing what I do. And so I fell back into working with clients, doing consulting. I also consulted for Fortune 500 companies and just started my business and career out of realizing that I wanted to make a bigger purpose or a difference in people's lives and helping them build brands that really stand out and help entrepreneurs who are making a difference get their voices to be known and heard.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's loaded. I'm thinking with regards to going to Nepal, isn't it that there is that place that's in Nepal where it's considered the happiest place on earth, and instead of measuring gross national product or per capita income, they're actually measuring the happiness of each person. Well, why do you think is that? Being there, what do you think was kind of in the environment, in the society that made those kids happy, considering maybe their circumstance or whatever other situations that they're dealing with?
I feel like, those kids, especially, they got a new lease on life, right? They got another opportunity, another chance at making their life the best that it can be. And I feel like it's also a simpler lifestyle there. Like, I feel like at least in America, we try to have the house, the car, the clothes, the whatever, and they
The
value material
things.
stuff. They value simpler things and family and togetherness and being happy. And so we just have a different value system. And it made me re-look at why I was doing what I was doing, and if it was really serving me on an internal level, or if I was doing it for the, praise from my parents or to follow society. And I had to reevaluate really why I was doing what I was doing.
So with regards to that struggle, from the calling or the expectation from your family, and then completely turning your back on that path to now venturing into your own. How was that journey for you, Minling?
I would love to say that it was super easy. Everybody wants it to be like this clear path, and you start your own business and you just take off. And that is like, the dream, but there is a lot of ups and downs. And I feel like it's important to have those ups and downs because it builds a lot of resolve within you. So when I first started my original idea of this inspirational site, like it wasn't really making any money. I didn't know what I was doing. I was still trying to figure out, my purpose, what I wanted to do, what inspired me, what I was good at, trying to find my place in the world. And I think when you start off as an entrepreneur, you really have to understand what it is that you desire and how you want to make a difference, and start playing with that. And I also want to make this recommendation to people, in this process of entrepreneurship, you're going to have a lot of trial and error. I had a lot of trial and error in my own journey and my own path. And the quicker you can overcome it, the quicker you can have success. So I learned really quickly when I made a mistake, even within my own brand. At first, I tried to have a different type of tone of voice, and it wasn't quite me. It was me, but it wasn't truly me. Like I just did not want to email or did not want to message, or it just made my path a little bit more difficult. And it's okay though. It's okay if you have those hiccups, as long as you realize what the hiccups are and are able to pivot. I think it's really important to be as flexible as
I agree.
possible with your business and brand, and don't be afraid of
Venture.
changing what doesn't work.
Yes. So it's basically falling forward or failing forward and bouncing back right away and learning. So I think what's important is you to really learn from all those mistakes and really using it to your advantage, right? And then just forge ahead. So if we could start with square one, if you could define for our audience what branding is and why it's crucial to have an effective branding.
Yeah. So branding, everybody thinks of it as the website, the logos, and the graphics, and that's really not what a brand is about. A brand is really about how other people perceive you. So I always like to say that you don't technically own your brand. I mean, you do own it in a way because you are the company owner, but your brand reputation and perception lives in the hearts and minds of your consumers, your customers, your clients. How they view you is how your brand is going to be perceived. And so when you think about branding, you want to think about the experience that you create for your audience, and you want to positively influence their experience through your messaging, through your social media, through your website, through your products and services. And all of that creates the brand experience, and all of that is part of your brand. It's all those little touch points that will make up somebody's mind on whether or not they like you as a brand or they don't like you as a brand. So branding is more than just focusing on the website logos and graphics, which is one of the mistakes that I see a lot of people make by thinking that they are branding themselves by creating a website, which is not the truth.
Or with whatever branding memorabilia that they have. And they spend more on those tangible items than really, I think, the messaging. So with kind of what I heard is branding creates that, it's what lingers in the consumer's mind. It's what creates a lasting impression. And it also, I think, is it helps with the subliminal, the subliminal effect that I think in television or any ad, that's kind of what you want to really permeate in the heads of or in the minds of your consumer
Yeah.
or your target market.
95% of all purchase decisions are made on an emotional level, on a subconscious level. It's
Exactly.
based off of how people feel about you as well. So it's not enough to just, again, create tangible things. You have to create an emotion of an attachment that builds that loyalty and builds that affinity between you and your customers.
Exactly. So between the emotion and the rationale, for the most part, the emotion is the one that gives the go signal to write the check, right? So with regards to with your experience on what you've seen in the corporate world, what has been kind of the common mistakes that you've seen companies make, and how business owners can avoid those mistakes?
Mm-hmm. One is not really listening to what the consumers want and where the consumers are going. So even in big companies, they do this. They don't see where the market trends are going, and they are so stuck in their own ways that they're not able to pivot to make the necessary changes because there's new technology or new thing that the customers want or are looking for. So one of the biggest mistakes is not listening to your customers, because you can have an idea of where you want to go. You can have an idea of what you want to create. But if the customers are telling you different feedback and you're not following it, then that's a mistake. I know when we were working on some pieces of your brand, we did a focus group for Runway Heels.
That's
and
right.
we got some really good knowledge that we wouldn't have known if we didn't interview them. Like, there was a difference between even saying, like, starting off with a heel and turning into a flat versus it being a flat that turns into a heel. There was these slight nuances that you wouldn't have expected, but that was a big deal to customers. And so we had to change the messaging to align to what the customers wanted, which then helped build the brand and the affinity for the brand too. Because if we came about it the way that we were originally thinking, it wouldn't have been believable. Even though it sounds really small and minute, it was actually a really big deal.
I agree.
So one biggest
So having
mistake.
that focus group.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. It's that focus group and really listening intently to the feedback and insights of the actual consumer. Because, from the get-go, you have this vision and it's all about, let's say, the founder, right? But in the end, we have to really be mindful, really intently on the customer experience and really taking that, incorporating that with the evolution of the business. But I like what you said about listening. I think that's not just with branding. It truly is, part of the selling. The heart of it is you have to listen to what's in it really for the consumer, right? For selling, for branding, for any relationship, for that matter. Really listening versus speaking with the intent of already knowing what you want versus really trying to understand. So I really like that point. So Minling, here in our podcast, we have a lot of our viewers who are who own startups, and especially now with what's going on in the economy, people are very mindful of where they spend their money. So for those who want to bootstrap, their business, is there like a DIY tip or like a do-it-yourself advice that you could give to our new entrepreneurs or those that are kind of cash strapped and kind of want to do it on their own first?
Mm-hmm. It is really to focus on the fundamentals of branding. Before you spend money on a website, you have to get your messaging straight and how you're positioning yourself in the market. that is the make or break of any kind of branding, because that's going to dictate how you share your message and what kind of message you share. I think one, you have
Mhm.
to really understand your niche and who you are here to serve. A lot of people think that they can help everybody. While that's great, you're not going to be talking to the right
Mhm.
person. You're not going to be talking to that one person and connecting with them on a deep emotional level. So you really do have to niche down and understand that customer on a deep emotional level of what issues they're facing, how they're not being served right now in the market, what kind of solutions that they're seeking, and going deep into your customer analysis. Then I always tell my clients to go, look at the marketplace, look at what their competitors are doing right now, what is happening in the industry that you don't believe in, that you are like, wait, there's a better way to do this. So you want to start to understand what your competitors are doing and saying in the market, because then you can map it against what your customers want and see where the empty space is, and see also where you are really good at, and bring that into the
Mhm.
equation. So it's kind of like, I like to think of it as triangulation of, and pinpointing where it is that you are the best fit for your ideal clients. And that's what you really have to do, because then you're able to say, okay, now I know how to position myself, because I know what the customers want. I know what the competitors are doing. I know my benefit and why I'm better than everybody else, and I know where the white space is in the market. Now I can say, like, I have X, Y, and Z product that can help my customers get to their real desired results, and it's better than competitors because I offer this value. And that's going to start to help you craft the message that you need to craft in order for your ideal clients to want to potentially work with you and buy from you. I mean, that's how we came up. I'm using your brand as an example, like no compromises, because people didn't want to compromise on their shoes. And that's why we started talking about living life without compromises, and including your shoes. And so you start to find those nuances and points and the messaging by doing this legwork first, in order to find out how you are positioned in the market, and then go ahead and create the messaging to align with the positioning.
Mhm. I think you also brought up a good point on just like with anything that you build, whether it's an actual home or an actual building, the foundation needs to be super solid. Otherwise, the end product is going to be flimsy as well, and it won't really resonate with what you want, for your brand. So doing that legwork and laying that out from the get-go, I agree, is important. Um, uh, and for those that try to do it on their own, is there like signpost or metrics or anything that they need to watch out for to know that they're on the right path or they're on the right direction
Yeah.
with their branding?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, after you come up with, the direction that you want to come up with your messaging, you want to test it out. You want to beta test it, see, with your audience, the people that would be most interested, whether they're on social media platforms, whether you do another focus group, whether you do a beta launch or something, and test it out in the market to see whether or not people resonate with what you are saying. I think a lot of people jump into like, oh, I'm just going to launch and I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on ads, and you get no results. You want to test and tweak as you go and see, are people clicking through? Are people like feeling that emotion when you tell them about your idea or concept or message? You start to see the signs. You don't have to, spend money on ads. You can even test it off with people that are going to be potential clients on a one-on-one conversation, and just gauge their reaction and see if they light up. And if they're like, oh my gosh, I really want to know this, can you share more with me? Or if they're like, oh, that's a cool idea, like you don't want, oh, that's a cool
Mhm.
idea. You want somebody to be like, oh my gosh, I need to have it. Where can I buy it? How can I
Oh my God, yes.
yeah, how can I get it? Tell me more. So you can start to see by not only doing like metrics of like click-through rates and like how many people are actually interested in what you
Engaging.
have and in conversions, but you can also do it on a one-on-one basis if you don't want to do ads and testing and all that stuff. But you want to get the same kind of reaction of like, yes, I actually need that. And you can even like post it on Facebook as well too. If your ideal clients are on Facebook or in a Facebook group, and some groups allow you to share ideas and say like, okay, this is my idea, that like, does this resonate? And people will give you an honest answer. So there are many different ways to test it out and kind of see before fully launching. But if you do ads, then make sure you're watching your conversion rates. And if you have a low conversion rate, then know that your messaging is off there or something's off, and start to tweak and see what you need to tweak and before fully scaling it up.
With regards to established companies, so here they are, they've been in business for several years, yet they think that there's something missing. Is there like a perfect time that you think that a company needs to rebrand? And do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah. So one is if they feel like they've plateaued. So if they're seeing stagnant sales, they're seeing that nothing is moving, they've tried everything, that they're not seeing new growth, that's one indication of whether or not they need to start to rebrand and revisit their message. Maybe they just need a refresh. Maybe they just need a spin on their message. Maybe they need a whole overhaul. It really will depend on the findings. But if they see their sales plateauing and they're not seeing growth or even declining and they're not seeing growth, then you need to start to look at doing a rebrand or a refresh or remessaging. If you are also for personal brands, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs creating their own personal brands, what I find with my clients is when they feel like they've outgrown their message, because in a personal brand, you are the brand. And so if you've outgrown your message and you don't feel like talking about these things that you were talking about, if you're not feeling jazzed about like, or happy or excited about what you're sharing, then chances are you probably have outgrown your current brand and you want to refresh. Like I know in my own business, I outgrew my brand when I knew that I didn't want to just talk about branding, right? I wanted to talk about energy work and really aligning your energy to your brand. And so I have a new layer, an additional layer that I work with my clients to work on their mindsets. For personal branding clients, I also have a consulting side, but for personal branding clients, I also love doing the energy work to help them shift out of any old belief systems and blocks that are holding them back so that they can become the most radiant version of themselves and become fully self-expressed. And so that actually lights me up, working with a personal brand in that way. And so I had to switch some of my messaging and create that other up level of my brand as well in regards to my personal coaching business. That's different and separate from my consulting business, but I had to do that too. And so it's all part of growth, especially if you have a personal brand. It's all part of your growth. And as you grow, as you see yourself plateauing, as you see yourself being stagnant and not feeling like your message is truly representative of you, then it's time to relook at your message and rebrand.
Okay. So, listening to what you're saying in terms of like that weaving the energy work, that seems like it's very interesting. It's an avant-garde approach to branding, incorporating that deep of a level when you're talking soul energy part of this dynamics. So you've mentioned if a business plateaus, and if, let's say, your personal branding, if you have outgrown that, then it's a good time to maybe step back and look at your brand. With regards to companies that have experienced some nasty or let's say reviews that are really hurtful for the brand, and if, let's say, they have received a slew of that, and or maybe due to bad publicity or really something that has gone wrong with the product or the service, so on and so forth, do you think branding has a way to do a little bit of that damage control?
Mhm.
And what would be your suggestions in kind of overturning that type of damage to a company or a brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely feel like one, the company needs to first fix the issue, whatever it is, and own up to it. I think a lot of companies try to pretend it's not there or try to skirt around the issues and blame it on somebody else. And even in my Nestle days, when we had recalls and stuff like that, we had to face things head on, because we knew that if we just let it linger, people will start questioning the brand and saying, like, do you really care about us? Remember, at the end of the day, the customers want to know that you care about them. And so, one, quickly fix the issue, whatever that is. Two, share what steps you're taking to fix that issue as soon as possible and come up with an action plan. Three, share what you're promising, like what do you promise from here on out to do as a brand, as a company, and then stick to that, and continue to go ahead and follow the new promise so that you rebuild the trust. The reason why you get bad reviews, and people start disliking brands is because the trust has eroded. Just like in a relationship, if you want to even just take out brand for a second and just think about one-on-one relationships, let's say we were best friends, and that's how some people feel about brands, and then I broke your trust in some way. You have to repair the trust. You have to own up to it and be like, oh my gosh, I was such an idiot. I did not mean to do that, and B, like, I will never do that again. This is how I'm going to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen. And C, you're going to have to consistently show up as that new version of you, as the one that promised those things that to your customers, and consistently show up. And that's how you start to repair the trust. Because if people don't trust your brand, if people are giving you negative reviews because they don't trust you anymore, that's how the brand gets eroded. So just continue to look at how you can repair and the trust between you and your clients.
I like that analogy of using branding and how it relates to even that one-on-one relationship. I think even with the social media, which is part of marketing, they say the tone of voice has to really be like you're talking to your best friend, right? So it's that BFF type of dialogue that you want your voice to kind of, the voice that you have on your social media. Otherwise, people will tune out, right? Now, with regards to brands that you admire, are there any particular brands that stand out in your experience that you think have done, an amazing job with their branding?
Yeah, so one I always talk about all the time, it's Tom's Shoes, because they did a really good job on aligning their brand to social good. They were one of the first companies that did that, and everything tied together from their messaging of 1-to-1 for every shoe that they buy, another one gives to another child in need. Every single product is tied back to something. Even the way that their look and feel on their website, on their everything was tied together. And they also were big on social causes, creating a day without shoes so people know what it's like without shoes. They did a phenomenal job in branding and marketing themselves when they first came on. So, and they created like a loyal audience. So I would say that is one brand that I've loved. I think Dry Bar does another great job of creating brand personality and really owning like who they are. From the cocktail menu of like the hairstyles, from the experience that they create. I think they did a good job of creating a new industry, a new concept of a blow dry bar, because before that wasn't in existence, and so so I think that's another great company where they started to look at, what do customers really need? What are they missing? What is the industry not even sharing or doing right now? And what are we really great at? And creating this new open area of concept that wasn't even in existence beforehand.
So in terms of what makes a strong and timeless brand? Are there specific characteristics that you think, or the ingredients that need to happen for a brand to be timeless?
I think you want to make sure that your message is consistent. I think that part of timelessness makes it is through consistency, is through sharing your message in a consistent manner over and over and over. If you look at, brands that have been around for ages, like Disney, for example, they always talk about the magic. They always talk about, create
Happiest place on earth.
Happiest place on earth. Like that's timeless because they are not always changing their messaging every few seconds to follow trends. And I think that's one way to make it timeless and to really help your, customers get to know you, and being consistent as well too. I think consistency also helps you with timelessness, because the more that you can share your same message over and over, and the more you show up over and over, the more you start getting embedded into people's lives and everyday routine, and they start thinking about you because that's how people remember you.
I don't know where I saw it, somewhere where they listed the most trusted brand, or brands that have really stood the test of time, and that's just really globally known, from Toyota to Sony to Samsung. Have you seen that data, and why do you think is that? What are they doing right in terms of branding?
I would say that, again, it's the consistency. Toyota's reliable, right? They're reliable all the time. They are always showing up in the right way in terms of their products. Like, cars don't fail. It's that trust factor. Those companies pride themselves in consistency and delivering consistently on the end product itself. So the whole entire experience is key, which is why branding is more than just a website. It's really key to helping people become the best brand that they can be.
So it's consistency and making sure that it aligns with the product that they deliver and the promise that they deliver, right? So I guess regardless of how consistent, if let's say the product that you deliver isn't really matching the message, right? So I think making sure that the product, the service align with the consistency of the message. With regards to your philosophy, Minling, what has been what you feel is your unique, differentiating factor and your philosophy with your branding company?
Yeah, I believe in branding from that comes from the inside the soul. That I believe that each brand has an energetic frequency that people can feel. The way that you show up, your personality, all of that. So I work with my clients to understand what that energy is behind their brand. So I'm not going to be a company that tells you how to brand. I dig deep in understanding the soul of your brand to bring out the best parts of you. And I know that we had an experience working on Runway Heels where it was really that I can see and spot and feel the soul of the brand and help people pull that out so that shines. It's not that we're trying to put this facade over your brand, but really taking the essence of the brand, pulling it out, the energy of the brand, pulling it out, and making that the differentiator in the market.
So with regards to at the end of the day, there's all these nuggets and amazing tips that you shared with us. If there's three major takeaway that you want our audience to take from this segment, what would those three major takeaways that you would want to impart to our viewers?
Definitely. One is branding goes beyond the website logos and graphics. Don't just focus on the visuals. Get the foundation set. Understand your positioning, understand your customers, understand your competitors, define your place in your market, and start honing in on your core message. So always start from the foundation. The second piece is really focusing on your niche and figuring out what your customers and clients really want, not just looking at the demographics, but getting into the feeling, getting into the psychographics, getting into their emotions, because that's what's going to move the needle, because they buy from an emotional place. And then the third part is being in energetic alignment with your brand, especially a personal brand, like making sure that it truly represents you and your soul and the soul of your brand, because people can feel a disconnect if you aren't aligned with your brand.
Mm-hmm. Branding has always been something that fascinates me. It's a very interesting part of the whole entrepreneurship. So I so appreciate your time and your sharing of your expertise. Wishing you much success, Minling. Thank you again. And for all the dreamers out there, keep believing. You got this. Till next time.